I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today I'm joined by Ms. Meridee Hlokoff. She is the founder of LaserQuit. She's going to dive deep into the journey of breaking free from addiction using cutting-edge cold laser therapy. It is a revolutionary approach that empowers you to take control of your life. If you're ready to explore new ways to quit smoking, drinking, or any addiction that's been holding you back, you're in the right space. On this podcast, we'll share real stories of transformation, expert insights, and practical tools to help you overcome addiction and unlock your healthiest, happiest self. It's time to break free from and reclaim your life, and Meredith is the only one to help you get there. So I appreciate you so much for coming on, and this is such an interesting concept about how to kind of break addiction and try to help people that have addiction to smoking and drinking. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing this um, new method of addiction or free addiction for me. So thank you for coming
Yeah,
on the
of
show
course.
today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I will correct you. It isn't new. It's just not well known yet. And that's kind of my goal is to make it so the world understands that there are other opportunities and options for them to be able to get out of the addiction cycle that they're in.
So if you could feel free to introduce yourself and introduce how this recovery method came to be.
Okay, so well, clearly my name is Meridee, and I'm the founder of a company called LaserQuit Therapies. I ended up doing this business. It started out as a quit smoking business about 14 years ago. And it started because 5 years prior to that, I had quit smoking using cold laser therapy. And it was the most magical experience of my life in the sense that I had tried everything. I had tried all the pills, all the gums, all the patches, all of the options, and nothing stuck. And I'm sure there's tons of smokers who are like, yeah, I feel that because it feels like that's how it works with every single one of these programs. It doesn't work long term. We don't have success, or the success is minimal. Like the pills and the patches have 17 to 20% success rates. Cold turkey is less than 2%. Because of course people are like, they quit and start all the time. So really, if you went with cold laser therapy, it would probably be less than 0%. But there's the odd person who can just make a decision, snap their fingers, and they're done. Um, and cold laser therapy starts with 85% success. And that for me, I was like, I don't even care. I need to try it. And I had my treatment. The lady looked at me as I was leaving and said, just don't pick up another cigarette. And I was like, oh, that's easy. Thanks for that. Like I mocked her because it just, like, you don't tell somebody just don't pick up a cigarette. Because if it was that easy, I just wouldn't have picked up a cigarette. But I left there and I got in my car. And of course, I was smart. I was like, no cigarettes, threw them out, did all the things I was supposed to do. And I got in my car now. It was a 3 hour drive home. And one of the places that I enjoyed smoking the most, and probably mostly out of boredom, was driving. And on my way home, the guy that was with me in the car, who was my partner at the time, he said something to me as we were pulling into our home about, are you going to quit smoking? And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, you keep reaching for your cigarettes in the center console, rolling your window down, and then just going back to driving. So you're clearly thinking about it. And I was like, wait, what? No, I haven't thought about it, not one time. And he was like, there's no way that's true. And I was like, I haven't thought about it one time. And even as you brought it up, my brain started thinking cigarettes is how it felt. And he was like, what? And so I quit for 5 years. I did fantastic. And then I had a barbecue for my friend's birthday in my backyard, and everybody was smoking. And I went up to someone and said, just give me one puff of that. And I took the cigarette, took a puff. It burnt my mouth. It hurt my lungs. I coughed. I felt like crap. But by the next few weeks, I started smoking again. And so I knew that I had basically like broken all the work that I had done, which wasn't entirely true, but I started smoking again. I didn't smoke as much as I had smoked before, and I only smoked for 3 weeks, knowing that I was going to go back and do this again. Well, when I went back, the lady had had a second surgery and she was in forced retirement. And I was like, I need to do this. And so she gave me some basic training and sold me some lasers. And I went on my way to go start my journey. And when I ended up starting, I got, 85% success rates, which most people are like, that's great, especially with smoking. But in school and in everything in my life, I can accomplish 85% without putting any effort in. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to stand out above the rest, I need to get better success rates than this. I need my base to be what everyone else's top level is. So in cold laser therapy, you'll see them advertise 85 to 94% success rates. My baseline is 95% success rates for our programs. And that is because I spent the next 5 years challenging status quo. So I was taught how to do something and I was like, what can I do to change this? I spent thousands of dollars working with an acupuncture doctor. He was also a cold laser therapy doctor. And I just kind of worked with him. And he kept saying to me, like, you could probably learn a lot of this stuff on YouTube. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I'm going to go to my clients and be like, don't worry, I learned it on YouTube. And I spent all this time and money with him. And then I spent the next 5 years experimenting with people's permission, saying, like, I'm going to try something different with you. Keep in touch with me so we can see the results. So we experimented different sequencing, different timing, different lasers, what people needed more than just the treatments. Like, what do you need more than this to actually be successful? What is your biggest downfall in your quitting smoking and all of the things? And doing that research really led me to the place where I am, where my base rate of success is 95%. So, and there is a program, and the reason that that works is because of the work that I did in the background to challenge the status quo. And so we don't just offer you, the treatments, because the treatments work and they're great. But if you aren't given new management techniques, like how to manage your stress, how to coping strategies, all of these things, if you're not given those, you're going to go back to smoking the minute that things get really difficult. You might be able to navigate short-term, quick stresses. And even that, a good portion of people can't navigate those. But with our program, we have 95% success rates for people who use the program the way that it's designed to be used. That includes using all their follow-up treatment, using the support that comes with it, and doing the work that comes with it. And then I had a friend who reached out to me and said, my daughter is addicted to heroin and I have to go get her and her boyfriend. And, she just kind of told me this whole story and said, I quit smoking with you. Do you think this would work for addictions? So I looked it up and it didn't really have much information around heavy addictions. And I said, look, I'm willing to try it and I will charge you just for my time if you're willing. And she's like, I'm willing to do anything. And so I ended up making a time to meet the son and daughter, or the son-in-law and daughter. They came to my office and they came to my office. She messaged me and said, I don't know what to tell you. They literally just walked out and went and did more heroin. Like they just injected. And I was like, oh, and we had an appointment in 15 minutes. And I said, okay, well, meet me at the office anyways. So we went to the office. I waited until their high wore off enough that they were coherent and we could have conversations, because when they first walked in, they could barely walk. Their eyes were rolled back in their head. They were both laying on the couch. Like it was not a pretty sight. It made me really sad for them. And I waited. And within about an hour and a half, they were at a level where I knew I could talk to them, I could deal with them, all of the things. In the meanwhile, the mother and I had become friends. So we had just started like, we just sat there and drank coffee and talked during the whole thing. And I kind of eased her mind about, you know, whether this is going to give them negative effects and things like that. And then we gave them the treatment and they went home and both said that they had no desire to use. But then, of course, there's a process to this. It's not like I can just magically cure you and, oh, it's all done and better. And they both said, wow, we don't want to use anymore. This really is amazing. And as per time progressed, they were like, okay, I'm wanting to start to use. And I was like, perfect, get them to come back. Have they used? And she said, no, not yet. So this is kind of how my process began in getting them clean and then trying to keep them clean. Now the boyfriend did end up relapsing and he passed away. But the daughter is still clean to this day. And I have helped so many people, whether it has been heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, which the methamphetamines is one of the hardest ones to stop because there is nothing that you can really take, like they give, Suboxone and methadone and things like that for people to try and get them off. But then you're stuck on those drugs forever because you just, it changes the chemistry in your brain. And my clients don't need Suboxone or methadone or any of the things because of the way that the treatments work. So you name it, I've helped it. And COVID really kind of blew up the addiction industry because it caused people who didn't have addictions to have addictions in trying to escape the world that we had suddenly ended up in. And that's when I really started to like do the work and navigate, how can I make this better for people? And what does it look like? How does this look long term? How do we, make it so that people stay sober? And of course, in that came so much research and so many books and certifications on becoming an addictions coach. And that's when I learned so much about it. And one of the reasons that like rehab struggle so much. And what I found is one of the reasons that rehabs and any sobriety struggle so much is because with any long-term use, whether that's 2 weeks, 30 days, 30 years, you are changing the chemical makeup of your brain and the physical makeup of your brain. And when you do that, it takes 14 to 18 months for your brain to recover as much as it possibly can. And it will never recover back to what it was, but as it recovers, it takes 14 to 18 months. And now the whole reason that you started your addiction in the first place is not because you wanted to use a drug. It's because you didn't want to feel your emotion and your drug was the solution. So we basically trick your brain into thinking it's already got the fix so that you don't need that. And then we regulate you as high as you're going to get endorphin wise in your brain so that you can navigate getting sober. And then by the time your brain actually would have recovered, your brain has already been recovered for months and you're able to move through those things. So it's been quite the journey.
I think this has been one of the more captivating stories I've had on here about the addiction thing. When it comes to, because you have mentioned that you had helped people that have done heroin, cocaine, and also methamphetamines and even more. Is the process of them trying to get clean vary between depending on the kind of addiction they have? Like, does it would it take someone that I guess would, like you said, was addicted to methamphetamines take 30 days, and someone that might be addicted to smoking take 3 days, or how
This is
does
such a
the
good question. I love this. So, no, this is the craziest part. So, all addictions stem using the same reward center in your brain. No matter what addiction it is, it uses the same reward center. Now, when we talk about reward center, I'm going to get a little scientific here and I hope everybody can stay with me on this. But in your brain, when you use drugs, social media, exercise, alcohol, anything that you're using and your reward center responds, your reward center is responding by releasing different levels of different endorphins. So, for example, when someone drinks alcohol, you don't feel the same as when you do cocaine. And it's because the different toxins, now this is the craziest part, is when you put toxins in your body responds the way that it does with this reaction. And that
Mhm.
reaction is the feeling of drunk, the feeling of being high, et cetera, et cetera. So what is happening is you are actually releasing different levels of different endorphins, the main one being dopamine. But there are multiple others involved in that. There's serotonin, there's the bliss molecule, which is called anandamide. There is dopamine. All these endorphins are released inside of your brain at different levels, which give you the different sensations. And certain people really enjoy the feeling of drunk, and maybe they've tried cocaine, but it's not for them, or they've tried heroin, but it's not for them because the sensation of drunk is what they like. What we do with the cold laser therapy is we release all of the endorphins at the same time at the same level. So when we give you these treatments, we trick your brain into thinking it's gotten the fix, but you don't feel drunk or high. You feel blissful. You feel euphoric. You feel wonderful. And the recovery process, the majority of people, because of the fact that we're tricking your brain into thinking it's already gotten the fix, most people don't detox very hard. And I say most because there are certain people who will detox because your body just detoxes harder than someone else's. But we do a natural, we use in the treatments, we use a natural way of increasing your detox without you feeling the symptoms per se. Now, again, those things do depend on how long you've been using, how your body reacts to it, and no body is the same. Every body reacts differently to different things, which is, you and I can take the same medication that's given to us, and I could feel nothing and not benefit from it, and you could go absolutely crazy. So no person or physical body is the same as another person's, and all of our bodies react differently, which is why, say, someone prefers alcohol over heroin. But all of us have these same releases in our brain, and all of us have these same ways that we respond. So in the detox side of it, I wish I could say no one feels the detox. That's just not the case. And every single person that I treat, our deal is you need to make sure that you're monitored. So if you're going to come see me to have an alcohol treatment, you need to make sure someone stays with you that night, because if your body does go for any reason at all into shock or heavy detox, you need to be taken to the police, or someone needs to call the ambulance, or whatever it is, because there is the chance that those things will happen. We have not seen a lot of that happen, but I'm not willing to risk your life by saying, oh, it's fine, you won't need that. So I always encourage people, make sure that you have this, someone staying with you tonight, even over the next few days. But most of my clients will say, like, I had very little or no detox symptoms. Like maybe I had some joint pain, or I felt like I had a flu. Otherwise, I felt perfectly fine. And the only thing that I don't like about that as a side effect is the fact that certain people will use that as their miracle and just go out and use again whenever, because now they have a miracle cure that'll fix them every time. No. And I won't keep treating you if you're going to abuse the system that I've created, because eventually it's also going to stop working, right? Just like your tolerance to drugs and alcohol changes, so will your tolerance to your body. So we have to be super careful in how we do this. I do usually do some intake forms and stuff like that. I need to find out how committed you are to this process and how committed you are to giving this up. Because if you're not at all, then I tell you, go and do what you're going to do. And when you're ready, come back and see me. And don't do this because someone told you you needed to do it. Do it because you need to do it. So it really is a process.
And I think that is great advice that you gave there, because some people can hear this and think, oh, this is just an immediate lifeline, and that, oh, I can do it this every time and then be able to go here and get help, and it'll just 100% go away, and then I can start doing it again. It takes a lot of hard work. It's like an AA and all these addiction recovery rehabilitation centers. You can't just do everything and then go to this center and be 100% cured and then just turn right back around after you're released and go do the same thing.
Yes.
You have to keep it up, and you have to keep
And really, the core, this is the thing that I tell everyone, the core is that your addiction, whatever it is your solution to the real problem, which is your trauma. And the trauma has to be dealt with. And the problem, like I said, going into rehab centers, and I literally think that if we could put LaserQuit into every rehab center, we could change the world, because rehab centers have all of the right things in place. They help you deal with your traumas. They help you start moving forward. The problem is that the reason we start using in the first place is because we're in this state of depression or this state of pain that we're trying to avoid. So we start using to get rid of that. And then as soon as we detox, we're in a worse state than before when we started using. And now we're in this incredibly depressed, incredibly down, your brain not working, you're in a fog, And now you're supposed to deal with the trauma that created it in the first place from a place where you started using in the first place or worse. That is the problem. And then it taking 14 to 18 months for your brain to recover is why most people can't make it a year or more. But with our treatments, we give treatments and the treatments are spread out, but we end up treating people for over a year to help them and ensure. And some people come back to us for the rest of their lives just to stay sober. We don't have a ton of that because usually by the time we hit about 18 months, most people are like, I've got this, and we send them on their way. I do not see a lot of people come back with drug or alcohol relapses. I see a lot of people come back with smoking relapses because smoking is, a lot less, it's not impacting their lives in the same ways. So we do see a lot less success in still 95%. We have 98% success rates for our addictions, our heavy addictions, but we have about 95% for those who follow the program. If you come in and have one treatment, we probably have 99% success rates short term. I don't base any of my success off short term because I can stop doing anything for a short period of time before I start again. So my success rates, when I say 95%, I'm talking a year or more. I have people who have been quit smoking for 14 years. Same duration I've been in business.
Yeah, you have to put in the hard work. From a medical professionally standpoint, what have been doctors and researchers' opinions about this new or kind of this laser therapy? Are they supportive of it? Do they think it's just kind of like any other kind of recovery thing where it's kind of a half 50-50 thing where it works for some people but not others? What's been the um overall
Well,
consensus from medical professionals?
so in the medical section of things, the sad part is there has been no studies really done on these unless they're done by the individual. So like I said, I did my own study. It's not allowed because they say it's a bias study. Um, but this was following up with people. And then literally if someone said, oh, well, I started smoking again, or oh, well, I started using again, I got them back in. We tried something different. And I did that until I found something that consistently worked. And that took me 5 years. That being said, I don't make millions of dollars. I barely make six figures with these businesses. And these studies require, for example, CT scans where we can see before the treatment, after the treatment, before your next treatment, after your next treatment, so that I can prove all of the things. Now, to do a CT scan privately costs $2,000 per person per scan. So if I wanted to do one person, which you can't, that's not a study, even 10 people. So one person will cost me over $20,000 to do studies on one person. And I don't make that kind of money. Now, I've reached out to all these different places that are like, oh, we prepare you or partner you with someone who will do a study on your stuff. And they will not do studies. So if you Google us, you're just going to find that they say that we are I'm trying to think of the word right now. It's totally slipped my mind, but where they give you one is a drug and one is not. They say that we're the not. And it's just not the case. I have testimonial after testimonial videos and Google reviews and just people who are like, holy, this worked amazing, blah, 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 blah. If it didn't work the way that it does, 14 years later, I wouldn't still be in business. So that being said, my local doctors in my hometown of where I live are 100% on board because they've seen their clients. Their clients go to them and say, can I get just a letter of referral? Because if I have the letter of referral, I can write it off as a medical expense. And then I get doctors calling me and say, look, this client quit. Can I send another to you? And I'm like, yes, please do. And so in the town that I'm in, which is just over 100,000 people, the doctors know me as the LaserQuit Queen, and they refer people to me all the time. Now, that being said, we have 14 locations now. 7 of them are mine. 7 of them are partnership licenses. And that's what I'm working on right now to really expand across the world is to create these partnerships. And what that is if you already have a business and say, for example, a Medi Spa or a spa or a wellness center, I partner with you. I train you how to offer our services. I provide you with what you need, and then you run your business, you advertise, you do all of the things, and I take a commission on the sales that you make with our services. So if there's anyone out there listening who's like, oh my God, I need to do this, reach out to me. You can find me on social media, on the website, all the things. Reach out to me because this is how I am growing the business. And that's how I've gotten 7 additional locations is by partnering with people so that we can offer this to more people. My ultimate goal would be to get this in every single rehab center and this being a thing that they offer to help people get sober and stay sober long term.
For the people that you have been able to help and that have been in the recovery and this recovery method, what's been some really impactful stories of people that have actually really become that have gotten the 100% approval rate in them? What's just been the um overall opinion and some reviews that you've received from clients?
So I have this one lady that I always tell this story when I do these podcasts is this one lady came to me and she was agoraphobic, which means she didn't like to leave her house. Her husband got her a dog and was like, he needs to be walked. And he's like, can I go away to camp? So you're going to have to take care of this dog. And she made it into her backyard, and that was as far as she would make it. And I knew that much about her. I knew she was agoraphobic. I knew she had anxiety, and I knew she wanted to quit smoking. And she reached out to me and told me so. And then she said, and when she came in, she came clean and she said, while she was signing her papers, she said, I'm sure you can tell my hair is thinning. And I was like, okay. And she said, my hair is thinning because I pull it out. It's trickle something. It's a disorder when you pull your own hair out. And I was like, okay. She said, do you think this will help? And I said, well, if it's brought on by your anxiety, then it absolutely will help because your anxiety is going to be reduced. And she said, well, the reason I struggle with quitting smoking is because my anxiety skyrockets. This is such a common thing that I hear from people. So I was like, absolutely, totally understand. What you get when you get a quit smoking treatment is, well, let's just say this. If you get an addictions treatment, you get a side effect of a smoking treatment, a pain treatment, an anti-anxiety, antidepressant, anti-stress treatment. So all of our side effects or our contraindications are positive ones. And so I said, look, the side effect of you quitting smoking is that you're getting this stress treatment, which also will reduce your anxiety and your depression. And she was like, oh, that's amazing because I really am depressed from my agoraphobia. And I was just like, what am I getting myself into with this lady? I really had no idea. So
Mm.
she bought our smoking package and she came in the first time and she had her treatment. And then we send out reminders to our clients so that they don't miss their additional appointments. And she responded to her follow-up email and said, sure, yes, please get me booked in. We booked her in. She came in. I have a video on our YouTube. It's quite a ways back, but she ended up coming in and saying, I started taking my dog for walks. And I said, what? She said, my agoraphobia is no longer. And I was like, hold on a second. You leave your house. You don't just go into your backyard. And she said, no, like me and my dog take walks now. She said, my anxiety has been reduced so much. And she's like, look at my hair. I didn't see a huge difference, but underneath you could see that there was like baby hair, really fine baby hair growing back. And it was thickening per se. And I was like, this is amazing. I love hearing this. I was like, and how's the smoking? She's like, gave that up. No problem. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm like so excited about this. And I said, look, I want to do a testimonial video with you. And she's like, hey, I have to confess something. And I'm like, oh no. She said, I also want you to know that I didn't tell you something when I signed my papers. And I do get this. Like people do this to me. And the only people we cannot treat is someone with bipolar. If you do not, and we have it on there, if you don't acknowledge that, we will put your bipolar completely in a spiral that you don't want to be in. So if you're bipolar, we cannot treat you. Your brain does not respond to positive endorphins being released in your brain. So I was like, oh no, she was bipolar, but wait, she's reacting so strong. Like I was just so torn up. I'm like, tell me what was going on. She's like, well, I have a seizure disorder. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like my eyes got really big. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm working on your brain. You have a seizure disorder. And I told her because I give you a video explaining exactly what I'm doing. I talk about the endorphins. And I was like, okay. And I'm like holding my breath for her next thing. And she said, look, before I came to see you, I was having about 50 grand mal seizures a day. Now, I thought grand mal seizures, even the word grand mal should tell you it's a big seizure. She said that she was having about 50 of these a day. And I was like, okay, so are they like small? She's like, I mean, they're short. I'm like, okay. Um, so her and I start talking, and she says, yeah, before I started seeing you, I was having about 50 grand mal seizures per day. And she said that like it pretty much was just like an all day thing. So she'd have a seizure, and then the recovery from the seizure, they don't feel like themselves for a good 10, 15, sometimes longer minutes afterwards. And she said, after I saw you the first time, she said, I was down to 5 grand mal seizures a day. And I was like, hang on a second. You dropped down 10 times your seizures. She's like, I mean, sometimes, I'd have 10 in a day. She said, but my life has completely changed. And that we got obviously into a lot more therapy or coaching around that stuff. Like the grand mal seizures were a good portion of her agoraphobia because she had had seizures out in public and no one knew how to deal with her and no one helped her. And so then she'd wake up on the street and just be a mess and all of these things. And I was just like, now I understand where anxiety came from. And like, I wish you had been honest with me, though I don't know that I would have treated you. And she said, I know, that's why I didn't tell you. So we ended up continuing to treat her, obviously, because we had seen positive results. And I made sure she signed another form that was like, I accept all of the risks that are associated with me doing this, including having my seizures, etc. But it had a positive reaction with her seizures. And that kind of blew me away. Like all of the different symptoms she was having. And there, again, these things stem from like one. So like the seizures were where everything in her life had stemmed from, and we were able to make them better. And she was on an anti-seizure medication. So it was pretty wild. And then it kind of led me into, I started working with this gentleman, and he was my radio advertising guy. And he came to my office and we talked about what I do. And he was like, you're just so passionate about it. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. And he's like, don't be. And I was like, it's just, this is what I do. And this is where I can help people. And he was like, okay, have you ever worked with kids with autism? And I was like, no. And he said, okay, well, I want to bring my wife in. She needs to quit smoking. And I was like, okay. And so him and I had made a deal about helping his wife quit smoking. And so he brought his son, who was 16, I think, 14 or 16 years old. And he had autism. He was a very high functioning autistic, but he had autism. And he said, will you treat him? And I was like, I don't know what to say at this point. And he's like, we have all discussed this and we're willing to take the risks and all the things. And I said, okay, well, yeah, if that's the case, let's have a conversation. And then we ended up proceeding. And I gave the son a treatment, and I brought him out after, and I sat him down with his dad, and I went to grab the wife to take her in. And the dad said, how are you feeling? And he said, something, and he swore, and his dad said, hey, watch your mouth. And I was like, oh no, I ruined him. I think I just broke your son. And so I grabbed the wife and I was like, come, let's go. Because I was scared. So I took the wife, I gave her treatment. She came out and she was just so blissful. And she was like, I don't know how you could be the way that you just were. I feel so good. And as I walk out and she's saying this, the son runs up, picks me up, spins me around in a hug, and he's like, thank you. And I was like, what happened in the last 10 minutes? So when you're autistic, a lot of times they can't express themselves. They don't know, they can't communicate what they're feeling. So when he came out, he was feeling different, and different isn't necessarily good for people with autism. Different changes routines, different changes is just not good. They need their way to be settled.
Yep.
He wasn't feeling like himself. And then when he sat with his dad was amazing with him and communicating with him. And he sat with his dad, and his dad had said, like, what is it that's different? Let's dig into this. I don't want you to, like, you saw she's freaked out. So like, let's talk about this. And so when I came out, he said, what happened? And the dad said, why don't you tell her? And so the son, and I have testimonials. He's one of my favorite because in it, the testimony says, Meridee, you're going to change a lot of lives. And I was just like, oh. But what he said was, I feel like you took my blanket of rage off and threw it away. And I was like, what? He's like, I'm not mad anymore. And I was like, oh my goodness. The dad says to me, I don't know how well you know autism or how it works, but I need you to know that one of the major things is they don't empathize. They don't understand someone else. They barely understand like a lot of themselves and how to communicate that and things like that. And I was like, okay. And he said, what he's told me is that you have helped him to feel calm and easy. And at first that was really uncomfortable for him because he doesn't understand how that feels. So this progresses. The wife has quit smoking. She still quit to this day, which is lovely. The son started, so the dad had this deal because of the way autistics communicate and stuff like that, the dad and him had created this thing where it was time for him to shower. He would put a Thin Mint or an After Eight on the kid's dresser, and the kid knew that meant I have to go shower. So the kid would take the candy, eat the candy, have a shower, whatever. It started changing from just that was their communication to the kid coming out and saying, "Thanks, Dad," and going to have a shower. And the kid had never communicated like that before. The child also went to, they were in a youth, autistic youth group where they played soccer. And when the kid was playing soccer, the whole team knew that if they lost, this kid was going to be kicking balls and throwing a fit, and things were going to get ugly, and people just would leave. Like all of the teammates would just leave. And after one of the games, shortly after a treatment, this child went and didn't kick the game ball, didn't flip out. And everyone was like, what is happening? And in fact, he went to his dad and said, "I'm so sad, Dad. I let my whole team down." And his dad said that he was like, "Hang on, what just happened?" Because he was able to start articulating things that he felt, and it calmed his mind. So then I started working with multiple people with autism and saw very similar results. Now, that being said, none of this has been scientifically backed or proven, as I cannot afford to do the studies that would come from this. But I have to tell you that my experience in seeing these things has been life-changing for me while I watch their lives change. And that is why I'm here today. And that's why I'm so determined to make this such a huge thing.
I think doctors need to kind of throw away the professional research and stuff and listen to these kinds of stories because you've had a multitude of people from different backgrounds that just have a regular smoking problem to people that have had dealt with some form of autism to a woman that dealt with seizures. And you've seen different success rates in every one of these cases. It's all been positive. There hasn't been a negative. I think that this program is such a great way for people to kind of, because some people they can go into addiction therapy and it's the hardest thing they'll do because they go in withdrawals. I think
Yeah.
this is a really good alternative because from this, it doesn't seem like you have a lot of the after effects of getting clean because you hear horror stories all the time of people that are trying to get clean, they go in withdrawals, they can't deal with it. Seems like this is a new way of them trying to deal with it. So I really really love this idea. I think it's a great thing, and I hope that doctors kind of hear this, and in the future doctors can start doing actual studies on this and show that it does have a success rate. Um, if people, because I know I have like a huge variety of audiences, but if someone's listening to this episode and they know someone that has a smoking problem, or they have a drug or alcohol addiction, and they think that this program would be a good thing, or if someone's listening to it that does suffer from it and wants to start, what advice do you have on how they can get started doing the laser therapy and kind of explain the steps that they can take to start get into these therapy sessions?
So the first step is going to be finding me. So laserquittherapy.ca or laserquit.net. And now remember the laser spelled Laser, not Laz. Um, you can also find us on social media. So my personal social media is Sober Coach Mayor. I am a sobriety coach. I am an addictions coach. I am a business coach, a life coach, a nutritional coach. I have all these different certifications, and this is where my passion is. And I can teach you. We do certify people under Laser Quit because our treatments have been adjusted from the standard or the norm. And our programs are not the norm or standard that are offered in the other cold laser therapy places. So if this is something you're interested in getting into and you want to make a real difference, feel free to find me on social media. You can also email me from the website, all of the things. Um, Come find me because I would be happy to start vetting people as to whether we can partner and we can start making a difference in more lives.
Well, Meredith, I appreciate you so much for coming on here and sharing this wonderful program with my listeners and sharing it with me. I had no idea what this company was. I had never heard of it. So I appreciate you. I've learned something today from doing this interview. So I appreciate you coming on here. I will put all of her links in the description box below. I'll put her social media platforms, and I'll also put the website down there so that it's easy access for all my listeners, so that you can it's easy access to click on, so that it's all in one location, so it's easy to find. You can also follow me on social media as well: Instagram, TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcast, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcast. And follow Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcast from. It's on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's everywhere. So feel free to subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop, so you can be the first ones to listen. Thank you to all my listeners for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Have a great rest of your day and week. Be safe, and I will see you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.